Hey guys and girls, Bored Now here with you, or Keith as my real name is, and this is my special video of my recap of Buffy Season 1, so my overview of the season. And what I'm going to be doing on this video is I'm going to be going through the best and the worst of the season, so giving out unofficial awards and my feelings on the season overall. And another thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be ranking every episode in order of my personal feelings, my best to last, or last to best, so worst to best if you like. It makes sense to build up to it. So all 12 episodes in order. And this is going to be a start of a long running thing where every time I review an episode of Buffy, I will then put that episode on the list in the position I feel, it should go in basically. So I will update the list as I go along now. So starting with the 12 episodes from the first season, and I will have also thoughts on best character, worst character, best villain. I've picked out a line of dialogue and then overall rating for the season. So I'm going to sort of go through it quite quickly because if you've seen my reviews up to now, you've got a reasonable impression of how I feel about Buffy Season 1. And of course, make your feelings clear in the comments below. Tell me what you liked or didn't like about Buffy Season 1, which episodes stand out to you, which characters stand out to you, as much as you like pretty much, but join in the conversation. So, I mean, as you've probably gathered, I would say the debut season of Buffy was solid, if not obviously hitting the high notes, which it would in later season. I think solid, but obviously with quite a few flaws. It was still finding its feet, still finding its rhythm in the first season. And obviously you had a lot of very cheesy Monster of the Week type episodes, which did drag it down. There's 2 or 3 in particular that, without those episodes, it would have been a better season. But I think overall it's a solid season where there's a lot of sort of middling episodes, which were very watchable, but not great sort of thing. But it's a testament to the show that, I mean, I've said it before, even the weaker episodes, you still get 2 or 3 good scenes in them. It's very rarely, if ever, you'd see an episode of Buffy where there's absolutely no merit to it at all, which is quite rare because I think normally if you have a TV show, I think the weaker episodes tend to suck generally, and there's very little redeeming feature. But Buffy's one of the few shows where it remains kind of watchable, at least I think, as far as the character go and some of the dialogue that obviously is just so well written, then it does give you those moments even in the weaker episodes. But I think most of the episodes in this season probably fall in the middle in sort of ground maybe. But it's important to say that the bar isn't very high at this point. So I think as I go through some of these, I'll obviously make it clear then. Certainly for me, I think what you see as being a better episode in this season, a more solid episode, is an episode which maybe you wouldn't think so highly of in a later season. If you put it in season 2 or 3 or 4, for example, I think it would suddenly seem like one of the weaker episodes of those seasons because the quality is so much higher. But in season 1, it's it stands out as being a better sort of episode. And of course there's certain issues with season 1, it being a mid-season replacement, only 12 episodes, and the budget they had to work on various things, and just the fact that they didn't know the direction of the show and the mythology. So I've sort of wasted enough time with preambles, so I'll get on and I'll start with the rankings of the 12 episodes, and I'll go 12 to 1 because that sort of makes sense. I think, again, if you've listened to my reviews, you can maybe guess some of this. At 12, I've gone with Teacher's Pet because I think, yeah, the praying mantis thing is just such a ridiculous idea from the start. It is super cheesy. The rubbery, creature suit looks really, really bad. And yeah, just the writing overall. There's some really jarring scenes. So you get the scene with her doing the heads twist, and it's in the middle of the class. So, I mean, there's no acknowledgement, and they don't notice the teacher with her head spinning around, behind her in the middle of the class. And it does lead to the Exorcist reference from Buffy later, so that is one thing. But you have Sander acting kind of jerky in this. The actress who plays Miss French, who's the praying mantis, she's not very good. Apparently, she was out of Street Fighter. That was her other thing she was in, apparently, around this time. But yeah, again, it has enjoyable moments, as every episode pretty much has. But it's a real turkey. I think this one, I don't want to prejudge anything, but this one is going to be pretty low overall, I'd say, in the entire show for me. But that's Teacher's Pet, which is number 12. Number 11, no surprise again, I, Robot You, Jane. It's the idea for I, Robot You, Jane is a better idea. It's just, and it's so heavy-handed, and it's sort of ahead of its time because of the way the internet has gone, and this being back in 97. But it's just very heavy-handed with it, and it whittles it away, and it becomes a really dumb monster of the week type thing. And the other thing is, I think it loses sense of the main plot with Willow a bit, where I think you're invested in it a bit more at the start of the episode because she is so central to it, but then that slowly whittles it away. You're left with the really stereotypical nerds. Again, the acting isn't very good. That's one thing about early first season Buffy, is I think, although there's good examples in this season, but mostly I think, yeah, they just got who they could get for a lot of the supporting roles, and the acting really doesn't stand out, unlike seasons to come. Next season, for example, they really put a lot more effort into the supporting parts. And there are people who have fun with I, Robot You, Jane. There are fun moments in it, and I do actually find it more watchable than Teacher's Pet. I do love the scene at the end with the fountain, with the Scoobies all coming together and, kind of giving Willow a pick-up where they're pointing out their sort of dating flaws. The fact that Buffy's into Angel, a vampire essentially, and Xander obviously had the thing with the praying mantis. So I like that scene. I like the noir sort of gag with Buffy in the trench coat and the shades, following someone around the school. So there's good, and of course Jenny's debut is a good debut. It's enjoyable, and the back and forth of Giles' computers versus books, probably the highlight of the episode. But I think overall, although I don't really skip it when I'm rewatching the show, I don't skip any episodes to be fair, but it is still a bit of a turkey of an episode. That's I, Robot You, Jane. My number 10 might surprise a few people, but it's actually Nightmares. It's one of these episodes that a lot of people seem to be higher on than me. I just think it is very throwaway. I think it feels very sketchy. and overall doesn't amount to much. The stuff with Billy at the end, although I could see what they were going for, it just feels kind of forced and a bit melodramatic. There's good scenes in there again. The scene with Buffy and her dad Hank is really stand out for me. It's a really powerful, heart wrenching scene, which is very relatable. There's some good fun with some of the other stuff, like Xander and the clown, and him finally getting to deck the clown and confront his fears. So definitely good stuff in there, but overall it doesn't stand out to me. It feels like a bit of a hodgepodge of an episode. So anyway, that's Nightmares, which is my number 10. Out of Mind, Out of Sight is my number 9. I reviewed this recently, and this is a better example of good supporting casting with a really good cameo by Claire Deval, however you say it. And this is before she became more well known, I guess. Of course, she was in The Faculty a year later and has popped up in other stuff like The Grudge, and just a familiar face you see in a lot, and a really reliable character actress. And she's really good in this as Marcy, and it's a nice idea about bullying and about how you are literally ignored and you feel invisible. So then in this case she becomes invisible. But it does treat it with some balance. It's obviously a big episode for Cordelia in her character growth. Some great scenes with her and the Scoobies, so they're starting to build up her role, which then leads to the finale, Prophecy Girl, where she's again getting more stuff to do and getting closer to becoming part of the main group, if you like. Again, quite a few weaknesses, quite a few cheesy moments, and just silly sort of plot moments. So far from a great episode, but I think it's quite solid overall. That's Out of Mind, Out of Sight, number 9. Number 8 is Witch, with clever title there. And actually, Elizabeth Allen is really good in this. She stars as Amy. It's her debut, and it's interesting because you sort of thought she would become a regular. And she does reappear in later seasons. She does come back into it, and she does have a decent sized role. But I guess at this stage you thought, well, she's someone you could see popping up again in season 1 maybe, but that never happened. But you do see more from her, and I think she is one of the better supporting cast roles in season 1, and I think Amy's an interesting character. And speaking of camp, I think this is a good example of enjoyable season 1 camp, because Giles doing the whole spell thing when he's sticking his hands into the water, the cauldron, whatever you want to say, but the bubbly water, and him just saying release. It never gets old. I love that bit. People should quote that bit more than they do. So there's enjoyable stuff in it. Buffy doing macho man. Some really wonderful stuff. It's very watchable. But it's still quite dated and cheesy, and you get like the stuff with Cordelia's eyes when they go all white. That looks very sort of phony. But it's a very solid episode. It's really watchable, and it's actually one of those episodes I tend to rewatch a lot because I can forgive its sort of flaws for other things. But anyway, that's Witch at number 8, and it was very close between that and number 7, which I just put a bit above it, and that is Never Kill a Boy on a First Date, or On the First Date. And the reason I put that above Witch is just because it has more of a purpose in what it's doing with the characters and the story, the season sort of thing. So you obviously get the big twist at the end with the anointed one, aka the annoying one. that is a good twist, even though they then do nothing with his character for the rest of the season, or very little. He just feels very redundant. He just seems like a symbol almost. But initially, at least in this episode, it's a good sort of twist. It's an enjoyable episode, some good dialogue. I really like Giles's speech to Buffy later in the episode. And although it's kind of obviously Owen is the big black hole at the heart of the episode, is the actor is very bad, and it just feels like a phony kind of made up character, this combination of an attractive jock sort of guy, but also the Emily Dickinson loving nerd sort of guy. It just feels very forced. And also, you have to remember, it was the previous episode, Teacher's Pet, where Buffy gave Angel the jacket. Oh, sorry, the other way around. He gave her the jacket, and that was the first hint. And there was attraction between the two, and then suddenly she starts pining after this other guy. But anyway, I mean, it works well enough because it is showing them Buffy is still getting used to life as a Slayer and still obviously wanting to have a regular teenage life, which is a big part of the early seasons. So I think although I didn't believe in Owen, I didn't believe that she would be that caught up in him. And that is a problem. I believed in what it did for Buffy. It worked well enough for the character and the drama, but it's a solid episode. I think it shows that there's not a lot of difference between a lot of these episodes in season one. But again, it's one I find very solid and watchable. At number 6 and number 5, well, 6 I've gone for The Harvest, 5 I've gone for Welcome to the Hellmouth. So I've obviously just the 2 parts pilot, or they're technically separate stories if you like, but yeah, they're about roughly the same quality. I think Welcome to the Hellmouth is a very solid pilot compared to some pilots on TV, and I think does a pretty good job of teasing us for what the show might become. And there's some good humour. The characters are set up nicely. I love the opening scene with Darla and the boy in school at break of night. It's a good scene to set up what the sort of thing Buffy does, subverting your expectation, because you initially jump to the conclusion then the guy is going to be he's going to be the vampire, and of course it turned out to be Darla. Perfect subversion. And again, I think that just goes back to the time, and people wouldn't have had any information about the show, so you wouldn't know that Darla's the one in that scene who's going to be the vampire. Whereas all these years later, if you know Darla's the vampire without seeing the show, a lot more information's out there, so you might have that spoiled for you potentially, is what I'm saying. So 6 is Harvest, 5's the Welcome to the Hellmouth, and number 4 is The Pack, and I did this quite recently, and this is a very divisive episode as well. I think some people sort of put it down on the list. I think they see it as being a very sort of cheesy monster of the week, and that it's very on the nose with its metaphor, and that the idea just doesn't sort of work. But others are more into it, and I'm one of those. I'm more into it. I think it does some interesting things with the characters. Obviously, Xander gets to show a darker side, a more sinister side. There's some great scenes with him and Willow. I love the scene of Willow when she calls his bluff when he's in the cage. It's a great moment for her. She, again, is developing as a character. And the darkness of it is one of those, because season 1 really isn't that dark. Buffy as the show gets way more darker in the later seasons. I mean, even next season, which obviously I'll cover soon, but it is more yeah, it's not as dark this season. So the moments in this episode are really, they do stand out for those. I mean, the principal Flutie killing, that's a really dark scene actually, and the way it's shot, and it ups the stakes of the show. I think it does a really good job in that. Again, there are flaws. I think the ending of it, so I'm not saying it's an absolute that there's no flaws, but it's an episode I quite enjoy. I think it's a very interesting episode, which is quite different from a lot of season one, and also it does build on some of the themes of the season in terms of high school life and bullying culture and all this, and it does have character growth as well. So that's the pack at number 4 into my top 4. So you can challenge that if you like. Number 3 is Angel. So David Greenwalt episode, and of course it's the episode where we finally get to know more about Angel, his mythology, and the reveal that he is a vampire. So we get the first kiss between him and Buffy, lovely moment, but that's soon kind of put on the back burner when it's revealed he's a vampire, and the whole history with Darla. And even though Julie Benz as Darla doesn't get much to do on Buffy, she at least gets a good exit, and we see much more of her in Angel, where she really comes into her own. But yeah, again, I think it's to do with context. I think, as I said at the time, I'm pretty sure when I first watched the show, I didn't know that Angel was a vampire, so actually seeing this episode for me, that hadn't been ruined, so it was a really big moment. But I think I was quite lucky in that. I think a lot of people who are obviously coming to Buffy now would know that Angel's a vampire, so that reveal wouldn't have the same sort of impact. But yeah, it's just a huge moment, and they handle it really well, the reaction to it, and the stakes, debating, well, Buffy coming to the realization then she might have to kill Angel for the greater good and that. But then obviously there's more to it which slowly comes out. And it's a really tense, well shot episode with some meaty character stuff in there, and a big episode in terms of Angel and moving his arc and mythology forward, and some of the show's mythology. So no, strong episode, Angel. I do like it a lot. Number 2, and this will get me a lot of hate, but hey, it's a personal list. My number 2 is The Puppet Show. Fight me on that one, people, but I know some people find this episode too cheesy. They find the Sid the Puppet stuff too cliched, too on the nose, but I have a lot of fun with this episode. I've been through the reasons, but I enjoy the murder mystery aspect of it, the interviews around the school. There's some great dialogue. I think twists and turns, it plays on your expectations again. It goes in unexpected directions. It does play with the sort of form of the show, if you think of the very end shot. And Sid, I do enjoy his character. He's some typical dummy elements, evil dummy, but of course that's the twist, and he's not the evil dummy. And the scene when him and Buffy just realise then they think each one is like the killer, the demon. It is just brilliant. And Principal Snyder, of course, his debut, he steals all the best lines. And he's the perfect red herring. They make it look like he could be the killer because, of course, he's only just shown up at the school. And again, context of the time, people at the time might have thought, well, he's just going to be a one-shot character, something like that. But it's a personal list. Personally, I just enjoy The Puppet Show a lot, despite its flaws. It's a lot of fun. So what can I say? It's number 2. I don't expect it to stay at number 2 for very long, but it's number 2 for now. And my number 1, to no one's surprise, is Prophecy Girl. So objectively the best episode of the season, and of course I reviewed it recently, so I don't need to say much, but it really sent a statement, and this is what the show could be. really hits a lot of emotional highs. Of course, it's directed and written by Josh. Some great acting, some really unexpected turns, but mostly it just really highlights the importance of friendship in the show and the way the Scoobies come together at the end. But a really dramatic episode, some dark stuff in there, some surprising stuff in there, and some great character moments. So as far as season 1 goes, it is the standout episode. That is Prophecy Girl. So those are my orders. So 12, Teacher's Pet, 11, I, Robot Eugene, 10, Nightmares, 9, Out of Mind, Out of Sight, 8, Witch, 7, Never Kill a Boy on the First Date, 6, Harvest, 5, Welcome to the Hellmouth, 4, The Pack, 3, Angel, 2, The Puppet Show, 1, Prophecy Girl. So that's my orders as I talk over my phone. So I'm going to go with Best Character. I'm actually going to go for Xander in this case. This might be a surprise to some people. Obviously, Buffy has a really good first season. Giles has some great moments, some great speeches. But Xander I'll go with. I think he does have some really big moments, like in The Pack, like in Prophecy Girl. So Xander's actually my character of the season. I'll have plenty of other opportunities to give it to other people. But yeah, Xander does stand out. I like a lot of his sarcastic humour, and obviously we see the flaws in him, but we also see him come through, like at the end of Prophecy Girl. The stuff with Willow as well, I really love their rapport and their relationship. They're such a believable couple. Or friendship, but the tension there with Willow's feelings for him. You really believe they have been best friends most of their life. So Xander has a really good first season. I'll give it to Xander, maybe just because I feel sorry for him. Worst character of the season, it has to be the anointed one, the annoying one. I've mentioned it already, but the actor's really bad and it just feels a pointless character, even though the reveal of him was well handled in Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. And villain of the season, well, it's slim pickings, but the Master, it has to be the Master, really, because he is really the only villain given any sort of great screen time to. And so the Master, so annoying. Best line, I'm going to round this up now. Best line of the season, I may be dead, but at least I'm still pretty. Which is more than I can say for you. So that's Buffy. That's, of course, Buffy from Prophecy Girl, and that sums up so much about what the show is about. You can have it both, and just the surrealness of the fact that she's just been killed and been brought back to life. So that's a great moment. And overall, I give the season 6 out of 10 as a rating. So solid, doing a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of potential, but a lot of problems as well. It's not quite there yet, but we'll get there. So that's season 1 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and comment on my list and how you would rank the episodes and some of your awards for best characters or the rest of it. Just let me know your overall thoughts of the season, and I will be back soon with my review of the first episode of season 2, and that is When She Was Bad. But I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.